Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Just as Nigerians continue to lament at the high cost of living in the country, there have been calls by citizens and stakeholders for government officials to take pay cuts and also reduce the bloated size of their entourage. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has said that he is taking baby steps of pains to fix Nigeria's problems, urging Nigerians not to be in a hurry over challenges facing the nation. The president also declared that it is in the hands of Nigerians to ensure that the country gets to its desired destination. However, the news about the Chief of Defense Staff and service chiefs who were retired by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu last week getting bulletproof sport utility vehicles, personal aids, guards, and other perks of office, including generous allowance for medical treatment abroad as retirement benefits, has brought back the conversation about the country's resources not being properly utilized, as people have continued to ask why active and retired government officials get so much benefits. Joining us now on the morning show to discuss the remuneration package for government officials is Nana Sani Kazaure, spokesperson for the Obi Dati campaign. Good morning and welcome to the morning show.
Good morning, Oji. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Good to be on your show.
Good morning.
Well, last week we saw a large convoy escort President Tinubu after his, he returned from his first trip as president abroad. And some Nigerians were outraged at what they describe as sheer wastage of taxpayers' money, given the economic hardship they face brought on by the fuel subsidy removal. We saw our government officials driving around in these SUVs, guzzling expensive petrol. And now, they're asking if the remuneration package, as you heard in my introduction, for ex-service chiefs, the bulletproof SUVs, personal aids, generous allowance for medical treatment abroad, if these benefits can be justified at a time when people are calling for the reduction in cost of governance.
Thank you very much. You know, these conversations will always come up, especially when it seems as if the government is has chosen to be comatose to the plight of the average Nigerian. I say comatose because, like you said in your introduction, the flagrant use of, a large convoy, I thought we were talking about the reduction of the cost, what it costs to run government. For example, even the person who sits in the office, who runs this administration now, was once a governor, was once a senator, and is now president. So I'm thinking, as governor, he's entitled to pension. He's pensionable. As a senator, also pensionable. So now, as president, will also, after his tenure, he will still also be pensionable. The Nigerian taxpayer has been asked time and time again over the years, and I remember in class our lecturer once said to us that Nigerians have been called gradualists. So we tend to lean towards gradualism, but it's come to a point where you begin to wonder if the people who rule us, and I'm using my words, I'm being very blatant with my choice of words right now, the people who rule us, because these aren't people who choose to lead us. We do not see them cut down or decide to say we're going to reduce what it costs us to run government. For example, we have security votes that are most of the time are never accounted for. And this keeps boring a hole into the Nigerian economy. Nigeria's government is one of the most expensive governments, in the world. And the question is why subsidy has been removed. We hear that from the 1st of July, we're going to start having to pay 40% increment on electricity. For a government to be productive, I would expect that energy in its entirety, when I say energy, I'm talking about PMS, I'm talking about diesel, and I'm talking about electricity, would be subsidized. That's two most important things in any government would be food subsidy and energy subsidy. Not to say it should not be removed, but it should have been done in a very systematic way. Nigerians should have been weaned off it. You don't just jump from 187 naira all the way to 500 plus naira. It tells, you know, many people are losing jobs. Businesses are winding up because they cannot. Most of the SMEs in Nigeria are run by fuel, petrol. So at the end of the day, you cannot run your small business because you cannot even afford to. You don't have the energy, you don't have the wherewithal, you cannot even afford to pay salaries. And that is why when you remove subsidy directly and so abruptly on PMS, everything in the country goes up because we are heavily reliant on this particular fuel product. I'm curious to see how this government will now, what this government intends to put in place, the substitutes they intend to put in place to make it easier for Nigerians, not just to put lip service and say Nigerians should please be long-suffering. I think we have been long-suffering enough. Nigerians shouldn't be seen to be taken for granted. It's very important. Thank you very much, Oji.
All right, Dana. I mean, good intervention there, but I'm just wondering if in saying all these things, you are still in the mood for politics rather than for governance, given the fact that we're at least a month into the new government. So my questions to you will be to clearly clarify and say to us how the candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, will have done certain things differently. But first, let me clarify. You mentioned the 40% hike in electricity tariff from 1st of July.
In electricity, yeah.
Yes, today is 2nd of July, and it hasn't happened. It hasn't happened, in my view, because there's been a rebuttal of that proposition. And it looks to me like you probably must have missed that. So the 40%...
Missed that memo. No problem. It's okay.
Yeah.
I'm not in political mode. This is governance, and we're talking about governance. And because I am a Nigerian as well as the gradualist I talked about, I must speak to issues. And you will not tell me, Steve, that as you sit where you sit, you're not feeling the pinch.
Absolutely.
It has nothing to do with what my political leanings are.
Yeah.
It's difficult for us. I just got back from Kaduna over the Salah break. I returned yesterday, and I know what it was that friends, family are going through. So let's not don't politicize this, please, Phil, Steve. I beg your pardon. Let's not politicize this. Let's speak to the issues that are affecting Nigerians.
Absolutely.
If you're asking Nigerians to please if you're asking Nigerians to be long-suffering, if you're asking them, we should also see leadership by example. So let's not bring it down to His Excellency, my Excellency Peter Obi. Let's talk about the person that was selected to sit down there.
Okay.
Let's remain focused.
Okay, I get you, but it's also important to clarify to Nigerians. This is not politics, it is governance. But it is governance because... governance. Yes, because people will say that, and you know that the candidate of the Labour Party has also been commenting on some of these things. I'll give you, one or two examples, because you have made reference to what you called the flagrant use of convoy. And you know, of course, that Mr. Peter Obi also commented about it, whether it is 110 or 134 vehicles in the convoy of the president. But you saw that Nigerians have also brought out the video of the convoy of Mr. Peter Obi himself during campaign, which was quite long. I'd like you to marry that with the clarification from the presidency that, hey...
Oh, this is simple, Steve. This is that is just a simple walk in the park. You must always remember that during our campaigns, it was based on a lot of volunteerism.
Yeah.
There were so many people that supported the movement of the Labour Party and what Peter Obi himself represented. A lot of those convoys, I put it to you, that those convoys, a lot of them came through donations, people who couldn't be there physically, people who didn't put themselves front and center, but said, we are going to support what it is you stand for. We're going to support this campaign. And there's nowhere in the that I'm aware of that says one cannot accept donations from people. People donated their cars, their time, their energy, their homes. People donated their buildings that we should use as offices, and people donated their skill. Let's always remember
that's fine.
That the Labour Party came from what was seen to be nothing. And we came, you know, to change the status quo. I like what Prof, who spoke before me, always said. I've said it a few times on several occasions that in Nigeria, what we have are strong men, and we need stronger institutions. So when you bring out, let's talk about the institutions and what they stand for. At what point in time are those who are in government? Like, for example, I know the military hasn't come to affirm or deny what the Punch newspaper put out, I think yesterday or day before yesterday, about the, you know, the severance package that some chiefs of staff would be getting. But these now speaks to how is it, what are we teaching ourselves, what are we showing, you know? Are we listening to the woman on the street selling akara who's finding it difficult to continue her means of business? Or is it that we just don't care at all? Those are the questions that we should be asking. Me, I've always been a question-asking person. And so I'm always going to ask the government, whether or not it is a government I supported, you know, during the campaigns, or whether, you know, we must always ask questions and put them on their toes. If you've listened to any of my interviews, we always said we would hold, since you brought up Peter Obi, I will speak to that, we would hold him accountable.
Yeah.
So this government should be ready. It's early days yet. Like you said, it's just about 30 days or 33 days. But very soon we will have the 100 days, and we will bring out, we'll come out with our questions, and hopefully this government would have been able to
all right,
our doubts.
All right, Nana, I get you clearly, but if you had allowed me to actually land on my point, I'm sure that you will have, you know, you'll have gotten it better, and you will have taken everything together. The point about the convoy is basically to say that you have provided a clarification about the Peter Obi thing, that people donated, different people came together. But the same way is the same way that the federal government and their spokespersons, you know, have also come out with a clarification to say that we see how the president moves in Abuja with barely 10 to 12 vehicles, you know, as is expected. But what you saw in Lagos was clearly because you had other people, or different governors from different states with their own different convoy. The acting inspector general of police, who also came, you know, to receive him, and it was like a homecoming for the president. In any case, do you think that this is a major expense that really ought to be arguing, given the fact that there will always be an explanation, just like you have explained and clarified when Peter Obi was seen with, you know, a horde of vehicles? So that's one. Clarification is important. But then you mentioned that food and energy should always be subsidized. And I wanted to ask, yes, this government has removed a few subsidy on petrol. PDP and Labour Party also promised that they were going to remove subsidy. So my question to you is, how will Mr. Peter Obi have done it differently, you know, that this government has not done, so that Nigerians can learn and then use that to hold him accountable? Because he also promised clearly that he will remove subsidy.
Yes, but then he also did promise clearly that he would do it systematically, and it would not happen in one fell swoop. Basically, how he would have done it differently would have been, there would have been a systematic removal of the subsidy, ensuring that there are, you know, because of the last administration, it's very difficult for me to use the word palliatives, But that's the word that comes to mind as I'm on the hot seat. That's the word that comes to mind, that there should have been certain palliatives economically to ensure that people have the cushioning effect and they don't just, hit people on the hard concrete. So that's what Peter Obi would have done very, very differently. It won't have been done in one fell swoop. He has said that, and he has always maintained that. And that was why many of us followed him and said, this is the man for us. This is the man for the job for us. So I would expect that by now, in 30 days, knowing full well that you were going to move fuel from 187 naira all the way to 511 to 540 naira as of today, we would have expected that things would have been put in place. For example, just why don't we have simple mass transit to ensure that people can get to one place? Okay, subsidize transport for the people, or make vehicles available all around the cities, major city centers, for people to be able to commute easily. So these are the things that we're talking about, but none of this has been put in place. I'm certainly not aware, I don't know if you are aware, Steve, that there have been mass transports provided for the average Nigerian to get from point A to B.
All right. You have clarified that trending video of Peter Obi's convoy where his supporters, and that there's nothing wrong with supporters, donating money or following Peter Obi. But what do you say to those that have, alleged that the convoy that followed or greeted President Bola Ahmed Tinubu were also his supporters? How would you know whether they were at the expense of, government funds? And also, Peter Obi had deleted a tweet recently where he, referred to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu as, Nigeria's president, while, commenting about his long convoy. He had urged Nigerian leaders to, sacrifice for a better Nigeria. People are asking, why is he always deleting his tweets? Those two questions, please.
It's his Twitter handle, and he handles it by that's his prerogative. We are allowed to delete, we are allowed to post. I don't see anything wrong in deleting. And
so it has nothing to do with the backlash that he received. So it has nothing to do with the backlash he received with
it's probable, but I cannot speak to that because I am not him, and I don't think these are issues that we should bring up on. As far as I'm concerned, this is a non-issue. Why a man chose to delete his post is a waste of precious airtime for us to speak to the issues affecting Nigeria. I don't see how him deleting his post puts food on the average Nigerian's table, or transports them to the hospital, or gives them proper health care at the primary level. So let's speak to, if he referred to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu as President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, that's who he is. For now, depending on what it is the courts will come up with, it's the position that he holds in the interim, or whether it will take 4 years. That's the title that he will be called. Not that I support, but it is what it is.
And so what do you say to those who say, the convoy that escorted Bola Ahmed Tinubu may not be at the government's expense?
Okay, good. I'm glad you brought that up. I remember when Steve and I were having our little exchange and he was speaking, he did mention at some point that it was other government dignitaries and other governors. So I think that in itself answers your question. He already said it. So we can, from that, deduce that it is taxpayers' monies. It is government officials who are in support of the APC who came out, and they don't pay for the fuel themselves. It is taxpayers' money, so they don't feel the pinch. For example, they have health care packages given to them abroad. So why will anybody care about health care in Nigeria when those who have served or are claim to be serving the leadership have the opportunity to go abroad. So then they will never care about healthcare in Nigeria and many other things. But yet Nigerians are asked to be long-suffering. We are asked to be patient. We are asked to be, and there's nothing wrong with Nigerians being patient and long-suffering. But it is time for Nigerians to begin to see governance being pared back in terms of how money is spent, in terms of how they live luxurious lives, and these are all the issues we've complained about since the time of yore. We're still complaining about them. But like I said, it's early days yet for this particular administration, and I wouldn't want to call it a regime because it would seem like that is what it is. But for this particular administration, like I said, the next 100 days, you will see Nigerians coming out. I think right now, like I said, again, we are gradualists. So we're just taking it piece by piece, bit by bit, and hoping that it will not be what it's coined as on the Twitter Spaces.
Okay, before we let you go, I mean, let's at least have a holistic look at where we stand. I like the fact that you acknowledge that, yes, the title of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as it stands today, is the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He has done 33 days now. And you know that 33 days. A lot of people have said that he has demonstrated courage in taking some far-reaching decisions. As a matter of fact, an international newspaper, media organization said, called him, Baba, go fast. That's in his first, 1 month in office. I see that you feel that it is concerning the impact of these policies. But do you in any way see that he's probably laying a foundation for the kind of new Nigeria that will be strong, that will be economically viable? And when you say that the next 100 days, are you saying that are you by any chance projecting that if the tough times become so unbearable that it is likely that we may witness, I don't know, the kind of backlash that France is witnessing?
Let us put it this way. In his bid to run fast, he should not forget that he's there to administrate, to be a leader to the Nigerian people. So his bid to be fast should not be at the expense of the average Nigerian, of the average Nigerian who already finds it difficult to put food on the table, of the average Nigerian that doesn't have access to healthcare and to education and to all that the government is meant to provide. In a way, when you look at it, and subsidy removal keeps coming up, because when you look at it, it's almost as if the subsidy on fuel looks like it's the only thing Nigerians had that their government was giving them. And then all of a sudden, it's all taken away, it's stripped off in such a manner that the difficulties that are being faced, where I begin to wonder and I shudder to think what could possibly happen is knowing that those who are at the helm of affairs do not feel this pinch. There is the clear and present fear of a 77 trillion naira debt that we don't even know how we intend to begin to. So we can't be too capitalist in everything that we're doing. We can't keep taxing people who barely have anything to give back. So these are the pertinent issues that in his bid to be Baba Go Fast, as you have called him, he should also remember that while you're moving fast, you're spilling dust on the onlookers. That's not how it should be run, in my opinion.
Nana,
that's not how it should be done. Things can be done differently.
Well, all right. Nana, I would like to thank you very much for joining us on the morning show this morning.